kind of wear it tight. Button up from 9 to 5. I tried that life but said goodbye. I'm not always polite, but I get the job done. Who says that work can never be fun? I'm simply unprofessional. Simply unprofessional. Yeah.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Simply Unprofessional. I'm your host, Webby. Joining me tonight, we got Rob.
Hey, everybody, it's me, Rob. It's me, El China.
Oh, my God. And also with us, we got Devin.
It is I, Devin, and Devin has done this.
Oh, my God. I hate everything. I quit. I retire from SU. This is my last episode. You two knuckleheads can take over forever. You make my brain hurt. You make my brain hurt with that fucking boss level reference. Ugh. The worst character in all of the movies we've ever seen.
Possibly, yes.
I hated her so much. You know who?
Everybody hated her.
You know who was better than her? Beth from Life After Beth. Leaps and bounds better than that character.
No.
Yes.
I mean, to be fair, Beth is just Aubrey Plaza. Like, Aubrey Plaza is in every Aubrey Plaza movie Aubrey Plaza ever played in the history of all Aubrey Plaza movies.
Yes, and shows.
And shows.
All right. Let's get this shit show underway. This week, we're talking... it was a fan request by my mother, who messaged me saying, you guys should watch this movie. It has a good story and a good ending, and it's an all-around good movie. And she recommended Blood Red Sky on Netflix. So spoiler alert if you haven't seen Blood Red Sky. Just spoiler alert. So me and Rob sat down and watched this, yesterday?
Yeah.
I also watched it yesterday.
It was a movie. I'll give it that. It was a movie that probably was a little longer than it needed to be. And I'm just going to start off by saying what I said to you yesterday, Devin. I mean, I don't think it was a bad movie, but it did not hold my attention. And like I found myself just kind of zoning out throughout parts of the movie. Like, I don't know, it didn't sink its hooks into me like a good movie should be. So I don't think it was a good movie, but I don't think it was a terrible movie. It's like, I don't know how to describe how I feel about this movie.
I feel like this movie is like, if I was gonna explain this movie feels like it belongs. It really felt like it belonged on. It felt like it was written for like Sci-Fi Channel, and then given a budget at Netflix.
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
Yeah,
like I don't, and it's not a bad movie. Like, I would totally watch this movie. Again, I would watch it again. I don't know if I would watch it. Like, I wouldn't ask to put it on. But it's not a bad movie to me. Like, it's really not. I didn't dislike it. I just didn't like. It didn't grab me to where like I felt like I had to like sit there and watch everything on it. You know what I mean? Like, I tried to watch it, but I found myself like wandering at times. The pacing. I will say this: the pacing of the movie wasn't really that bad. Like, once things started, things got started relatively quickly, and once they got started, they kind of stayed elevated.
I will say it took me a little while to realize that some of the people, some of the actors and stuff were speaking English, like, this is a foreign film.
Yeah,
Like, you can get that just from the beginning credits. Okay, it's a German film, and some of the actors, while they're speaking German lines, you can see that it's dubbed in English. You know, you're hearing English, but their mouths don't line up. And then they, you know, some of the actors, when they have English lines, their mouths line up perfectly. So, I mean, that kind of threw me off this whole thing. If you're going to do a movie, and, I mean, I don't know if it was if the original was intentionally in both German and English, or if they meant for it to be, you know, heard solely in English. They should have just had it be an English movie. But it took me a while to realize that, like, that the mouths weren't lining up when they were talking. I was like, "Oh, this is dubbed. I don't know how I feel about this." Like, the only time I really watch dubbed things is like anime, like, and there's more action in anime than there was in this movie, in my opinion. I mean, it started to get actiony, you know, somewhere near the middle-ish, I think, of the movie, but, and there's only 2 actors in the whole movie I recognized at all, and that was the army general guy.
Yeah, I've seen him in a couple other things. I'm trying to think what the fuck he was from.
Graham McTavish was Dwalin in the Hobbit series. He was the really muscular bald elf, or bald dwarf.
Yep.
And he was also Father Kinley in the Lucifer series.
There we go. He's also freaking like 6'2", which I find hilarious.
Yeah.
That he played a hobbit. He also, if I'm not mistaken, did he?
He was in the TV series Preacher.
No, that too.
He voiced Dracula.
Hold on.
In Castlevania.
Archer. He was Archer in Modern Warfare 2. Yep, that's what I thought. And yeah, he did do Dracula in Castlevania. Dracula.
Yeah.
He also voiced Fergus McDuck in the reboot of the 2018 reboot of DuckTales.
Yeah.
And I think that's the most important thing on his resume.
I mean, I might give you that. Sure.
I do like me some DuckTales. He's also going to be in the next season of The Witcher.
Yep.
I think.
Yep.
He voiced. He's in a miniseries. A mini series documentary called Men in Kilts: A Road Trip with Sam and Graham. He plays himself as they travel across Scotland and discover their heritage. Premiered on Starz in February. Seems very interesting. Let's see what we got else here. He's in Colony. He voiced Kim in Kung Fu Panda's Legends of Awesomeness in one episode.
I don't really know some of the.
He voiced Loki in the Avengers: Earth Mightiest Heroes, the cartoon show.
He was a one-off character in a lot of like crime TV series like NCIS.
Yeah,
CSI.
him and I'm just gonna call him Mick because I don't know, or Rory. I don't remember the guy's full name. His real name.
Dominic Purcell.
Yeah, they both have like histories of playing like just like one-off generic bad guys.
Yeah, but I mean, Dominic Purcell played in my opinion, two pretty lengthy TV series.
Well, yeah. I mean, he played in Legends. He played obviously in Prison Break.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's had the CW stuff in Prison Break, but like prior to that, he was just like bad guy number 5.
Yeah. Those are the only 2 people I really recognized out of this entire movie.
I mean, I think a lot of them were German actors, so that probably makes sense.
Yeah. Well, with that being said, Rob, what was your initial thought watching this movie? Like,
Well, I know before we started, you were like, "Oh, it's a horror movie. You'll like it, and I won't." I was like, "I don't know that it's really a horror movie." Like, from what I could tell, the previews, the vampire was the good guy. So I was like, "I don't think it's going to be a horror movie." Which it was more of like an action movie than a horror movie, really. But I mean,
Yeah,
initial thoughts, yeah, that's.
I don't agree with that. Anyone who calls this a horror movie, I'm like, I don't really know if it's a horror movie.
yeah, I think
It has horror aspects occasionally, but it's not like a horror movie.
Wikipedia has it billed as an action horror film, and I want to say IMDb labels it a action thriller.
I would agree with the action thriller more. I mean, the horror scene, it's like, you know, it has horror-ish moments, I guess, but like, if you've seen like a real horror movie, you're like, no, I'm good. It's not really like a horror movie.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not. Yeah, I mean, so back to like talking about how I feel about this particular movie or not. It's weird. I don't want to say because I don't want to say I hated the movie because I didn't hate it, right? But I necessarily didn't like it either. But I didn't like it. It's like, I don't know. It's kind of like, it's hard to explain. It's like it's a very unoffensive movie to me. Like it doesn't invoke any strong reactions one way or the other. That's the best way to put it, I guess. Like if you asked me if I liked it, I'd be like, I mean, yeah. I mean, it's not bad. And then you're like, did you not like it? I'd be like, I mean, it wasn't my favorite. It's one of those, like, it just didn't invoke any, like, emotion out of me. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, if you asked me, like, oh, hey, did you like the Avengers? I'd be like, yeah, no, absolutely, yeah, I like the Avengers. I mean, as we're comparing that to that. Or if you ask me, like, hey, did you dislike Life After Beth? Yeah, no, I really dislike that movie. I can answer that question.
One of these days, I gotta make Rob sit down and watch this movie.
Please do, so me and Rob can sit here together and talk about how shitty this movie is, and Webby will be like, "But no, it's not. No, it's bad."
No, like I don't get me wrong. I don't feel like it's a great movie, but I do not. I don't hate it. I don't think it's terrible. I just love it because that's the first movie that me and you watched where we like had very differing opinions. You were like, I flat out hate this movie. I'm like, well, hate's a strong word, but sure.
I'm like, yeah, no, I'm pretty sure I hate this movie. Like,
the only thing I came out of that movie hating was smooth jazz. That movie made me hate smooth jazz because that's all the soundtrack was. Anyway, so I mean, yeah. Now, Rob, other than just it not you feeling it's not a horror movie, what was your takeaway? Like, how would you describe how you felt after this movie, as far as like towards this movie? Like, did you hate it? Did you like it? I mean,
I'm kind of middle of the road again. Like, I would probably watch it again, like not right away, or I would have watched it again.
Yeah,
if not for the fact that there was dog murder. 2 dog murders, but for that reason I will never watch it again. But if it didn't have that, I probably would have watched it again at some point if people had that on. I would have been like, yeah, okay, so it's decent. But no, never watching it again.
It's an awful lot of clicking coming from over there, Rob.
Yep.
Okay.
And as we all know, Rob draws the line at dog murder. I mean, I think a lot of us here all draw the line at dog murder. I'm not a huge I'm not going to define a movie or like not watch a movie because there's dog murder. But
I will.
I do not enjoy it.
Like, I won't watch I Am Legend again because he has to put down his dog.
But then there's like John Wick.
I'll watch John Wick again, even though I hated that scene. Like,
and then, like, I want you to watch Polar, but I can't recommend Polar to you.
The thing is with John Wick for me, like, I hated that scene. Hated it. Like, it was, like, stomach churning for me. But then there's an entire, literally because that happens at one of the first things that happens in the movie, then you literally have 3 movies of him retaliating because of this incident, and he racks up like a couple hundred people body count, if not more. You know, and it's not satisfying because I feel like, again, it doesn't lessen the killing of his dog, but you get a sense of justice and vengeance. Like, yeah, that's all I can really say about John Wick.
Yeah, like, I want to recommend Polar. Like, I want you to watch Polar, but there's like one scene in that movie where, like, I know you'll hate it for that scene.
Well, I mean, it depends on how long the scene is. Like, we watched.
It's not a very long scene, but
hold on.
It is
the CGI
like
movie that we watched there, where they do like the roller derby thing. It had the Nazi guy from Inglourious Bastards, but he was like a scientist with a humongous fucking like Reinhardt hammer.
What?
Fucking what's the name of that movie?
She's like
a robot, and then she ends up coming to life.
Oh, Battle Angel Lita?
Yeah, that one. And there was a scene apparently in the bar where you don't see it, but you hear a dog getting killed off screen. But Kurt had warned me because he knew I was sitting down to watch it, and he had pre-warned me that when I get to a certain scene, plug my ears. He's like, you don't have to look away. It doesn't show anything. Just plug your ears until the bar scene's over.
The scene in Polar I'm talking about very specifically is like he's like this like the whole plot of this movie is kind of like it's like an insane movie. There's like a hitman. Like, it's basically like John Wick ripoff, but slightly different, right? You have John Wick basically, where there's like a hitman organization, and they're like employees with like retirement plans, and the head guy is like, fuck, we can't pay out all these old guys' retirement plans. Like, these guys have racked up like $35 million plus pension plans. Like, we can't fucking pay this out. We're gonna go bankrupt. So he hires younger assassins out of the group to kill the older assassins. So he winds up like they kill like a couple of them, and they get to the main character. They get to him, and they're trying to kill him. Well, he's like on the verge of retiring. He's like one last job kind of thing. He's walking down the street. There's this girl outside, like with a dog. Like this, like girl, like she's outside of a shop. Like, he's like, oh, I'm gonna adopt this. He's like, I'm gonna adopt this dog, or whatever. So he winds up adopting the dog and takes it home. But he has like hitman PTSD, so he like sleeps with a gun. And the dog's like sitting on the fucking footrest of the fucking sofa he fell asleep in. He has like a bad dream, wakes up and just blows the dog away unintentionally.
Well,
and you're just like, well. And then like the next scene, he wakes up, fires the gun. You like it's like a wide shot. You see the dog go flying off screen, and then it's like he's just like he like looks around the room and looks for the dog, and he's just like shit. And then there's the next like a scene of him just burying the fucking dog and burning all the shit he bought for it. And I'm just like, damn, it's fucked up.
Now,
but other than that, I mean, like, it's a batshit movie.
Is this a newer movie?
It's came out in 2019. It's like a batshit movie. Like, it's.
Are there any big names in it?
I mean, what's his name? Yeah, I mean, there's people in it. It stars Mads Mikkelsen. I don't know if you know who Mads Mikkelsen is, but
It sounds familiar.
Mads Mikkelsen, he is... What would you know him from? He was Caecilius in Doctor Strange. He played Hannibal in the... he played Dr. Hannibal Lecter in the Hannibal TV series.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
He's the main guy?
Yeah. He's the main guy. It has Vanessa Hudgens. It has... Who else was in it? It's Matt Lucas. Matt Lucas is the weirdest fucking.
Now that sounds like they put in dog murder for comedy, which is the worst kind.
It wasn't like a comical scene. It was showing you that he was like damaged, but just the way it was shot, it came off kind of funny. Like I felt bad. It was like came completely off guard, and I was just like, I kind of like chuckled. I was like, I feel bad for that, but like it wasn't like shot intentionally to be like unfunny. or to be funny, but it just the way it was shot and the way it happened so suddenly, it just kind of caught me off guard. I was like, jeez, like that kind of thing. I mean, there's this guy, and this guy's the main bad guy. And I think he's one of the weirdest looking people of all time.
I
like,
will
no
say,
offense to the guy.
I will say, the Boondock Saints has a scene where they shoot a cat intentionally for comedy purposes.
Like, there's this guy. This guy's the main bad guy.
Where are you putting this?
I just posted it in the general chat.
Okay, he looked well. My initial thought looking at him is he is like a retired Lex Luthor who just let himself go.
That's kind of how it is. Except he somehow looks more insane in the actual movie.
Yes.
They give him like a birthmark, and like he has like this like obnoxious blonde hair. It's like this movie's bad shit. Like this movie is actually bad shit insane, but I actually like love this movie.
All right, well let's get back to this Blood Red Sky movie first.
All right.
So yeah, German movie. It's all about. So the synopsis that I'm reading from, just so everybody knows, is from Wikipedia. They have a pretty good breakdown, and it's actually really short. Because guess what? There's not a lot to this movie. A German widow. You find out her name's Nadia. Her son Elias. Even I keep wanting to say Elias, but it's Elias, I guess. Anyway, they're trying to get on a plane. The son goes and purchases tickets, gets all the luggage and stuff on board. The mother meets him at the airport later on after nightfall, which is clue number 1. Can't go out during the day. Gee, wonder why. And she's taking medicine as soon as she gets to the airport, she drinks a little bottle of something and then injects herself with a vial of something. So I think the original premise is she's masking her symptoms by taking these medicines that help suppress them, and she just looks like a leukemia patient. Like she just looks like somebody who's semi-sickly. Now I was reading in the one review that I read of this movie how in the original, because this is a remake of a German horror movie. The movie is supposed to bring you tension, like her, what she is being, a vampire, was not supposed to be, I guess, really hinted at and or shown until like well towards like the middle and latter part of the movie. And I don't really feel like they kept that a secret for very long. Especially, like, I don't know, this kind of brings me back to the whole, like, just watching the trailer for the movie, they show you exactly what she looks like, and you know that she's a vampire going into this movie. Like, I don't understand why they give away big things like that in trailers. Like, are they trying to lure people who like vampires to watch these movies? Or, because that's like kind of a big giveaway thing. I think it would have been far more exciting going into this movie not knowing what she was and just feeling like she had some sort of illness or something that she was trying to manage, and then having it be revealed the way it was. But like right off the bat, you see, she puts on a wig, she's taking medicine, and then like you're seeing her, like she's covering up to the point where like you can barely really even recognize her, and she's not going out during the day. It's like, all right, you're hinting way too heavily at this, but sure, if I didn't already see the previews.
Yeah.
But anyway, so she's on a flight from Europe to New York. I guess there's a doctor in New York who's going to help manage her symptoms and manage her condition. Whether or not they have a cure or whatever, they're not sure. So mid-flight on, let me get the name of it right, Transatlantic 473, because that's the original name of this movie. The passengers settled down for the evening. You can tell there's already some douchebags on board, just because of the way they're acting with each other. And then, according to this synopsis, a group of men, including the co-pilot, discreetly murder 3 air marshals on the plane and sabotage the black box, preventing the plane from being tracked on the radar.
I'd say 2 of them were pretty discreet. I would say the last guy was not discreet at all.
Whichever guy the fucking psycho dude fucking just stabbed 30
times. That wasn't discreet at all. He was just like stabbing them as he was screaming for like a good chunk of time.
Yeah, well, I mean, they covered his mouth and whatever. Okay,
after
but like the second he's like the guy stabbing him's covered in blood, then he goes and like just walks out into the crowd of people. He's like, oh, guess what? We're taking over the plane. You know, why even be discreet about it then? I don't know. I don't get it. But sure. And I miss them fucking around with the black box altogether. I don't think I even saw that part. So anyway, their leader, I guess his name is Berg in this.
Berg.
Yep, is Dominic Purcell. Comes over the TV. Tells everybody that they have control of the plane. Tells everybody what to do and why, you know, this, that, and the other thing. And Elias keeps trying, you know, everyone's supposed to have their hand on the front seat in front of them, their head down. And Elias is trying to show his mom using the Sky Mall magazine or whatever that shows the picture of the plane that they're in. Essentially, that there's a hatch that goes down to the cargo hold. They could stay there. They could hide there. And she's trying to tell him, you know, hey, you know, face forward, do what you're told. You know, don't cause a problem. And he just like yeets out of the seat and runs. And she gets up to go after him and ends up getting shot for it, like 3 or 4 times, and is presumed dead. Elias is taken back to his seat, this, that, and the other thing, and after a little while, you know, there's intermittent flashbacks where you see how Nadia got bit, this, that, and the other thing, and then like she wakes up and coughs up a bunch of blood, and she ends up going down into the cargo hold that she was right next to hide from the people who shot her, which, I don't know. I understand they closed the curtain, but are you telling me that no one needed to go back there and saw that the body was missing? I don't get it. Anyway.
I don't know. I think that was like the galley area. It's like, obviously they're not going to let the stewardesses go back there to make food, so...
I guess. But none of the hijackers needed a drink, you know? I don't get it. Somebody would have gone back there, I feel. But that's neither here nor there. She goes downstairs. She commits the first act of dog murder, which I tried to tell Rob it really wasn't dog murder. It was a chihuahua. At least it looked like a chihuahua.
It's still dog murder.
No. Chihuahuas are more like just large rats. And she ate it for sustenance.
Nope.
And then she ended up killing one of the guys who was trying to mix a bomb, I guess, down there, and drank him. And then the second dog murder happened because all of his buddies found him down there dead, and she had let out the larger dog, and they apparently thought the dog killed him and shot the dog. Then she pretty much just, from this point, fully vamps out. She manages to get her... Oh, man, I don't remember now. She manages to get into the cockpit with her son and a engineering student who had spent some time in a flight simulator. That was the closest they had of somebody who could fly a plane. At this point, all of the hijackers were in the cargo hold, getting ready to jump at a predetermined location. She managed to get them to turn the plane around, so now they knew something was up. And
she wanted them to jump first, but they found out her body was missing.
Oh, yeah, okay. And they end up going up and trying to get her to open the cockpit door. She won't. And then they essentially hold somebody up to the camera. Dominic Purcell's character counts to 3. She doesn't open the door. He shoots him. And then he grabs another person, or tells the psychopath to go grab another one, who grabs like a little girl. And then just as he's about to do the same thing, she finally, I think, opens the door and then lunges at him. And
at the time, they didn't realize she was a vampire, so they're like demanding her. So she opens the door and she just rips into him. They're like, "What the fuck?"
So she just starts feeding on him, tears into him, and then starts like scaring the other ones back. And then she realizes like Dominic is starting to turn. So she goes and stabs him through the heart with a knife.
You forgot to mention her nemesis, the chair.
Oh, yeah. Dude, when she's trying to fucking... Get this. My favorite part, Devin, right? She's lunging at these other
she tries to leap over that fucking
hijackers,
chair and gets her foot
and
caught.
her foot gets stuck on the chair. I was like, this chick has superhuman strength, but her foot gets caught in an airplane chair. I mean, I guess that's realistic, because those chairs can be tricky, but wow, she was just, I don't know. Now, let me ask both of you this. I'm going to start with Rob, and then we'll go to Devin. From somebody who has played, I had made mention of Rob, like, this is far from like Vampire the Masquerade style vampires. Now, from a vampire genre, okay, what did you think of their interpretation of a vampire? Like, what are your initial thoughts on these vampires?
As soon as I saw her...
I said we're starting with Rob.
I don't care. Very good.
I mean, she's got all the cliche vampires. Like, she's basically Nosferatu light.
Fair.
She's got the bald head, the pointy ears, the fangs and stuff. Like, the more modern, like, TV vampires are all like, oh, hey, I don't even get affected by sunlight, blah, blah, blah. Obviously, she was, and, like their interpretation was the, like, okay, this is the cliche vampire, except for, obviously, traveling over running water, but...
Fair. All right, Devin, what about you? What were your initial thoughts on the way they portrayed vampires in this?
Yeah, pretty much what Rob said. She's like Nosferatu meets like Interview with a Vampire. Like the appearances and some of the cliches from that, and they threw in like some other aspects of like Interview with the Vampire stuff, and then it kind of just got that. It's kind of it. Like, I mean,
see, like I'll agree with you guys on the Nosferatu thing. Like the fact that all of the people that they show who, with the exception of like the psycho guy who ends up injecting himself with her blood, which we'll get to, but maybe he didn't have it in his system for a long enough time. But like they showed the old guy vampire and the guy who bit her in the flashback and stuff, and none of them had hair, and they were very monster-esque. But yeah, I feel like they were very, like, even with her lucid moments of, not ripping her son's throat out in the Bloodlust, I feel like they were very feral in their mannerisms. Like, the way she moved, the way she, she didn't walk like a normal person. She crouched and lunged and
she was constantly like twisting her head around, like when.
Yeah. I mean, like absolutely more like but I mean, it's. If I was gonna like I was trying to think of another like vampire movie I could like say that it's similar to, but I mean like, like can't really think off the top of my head. But I mean, just kind of like appearance wise, like very like Nosferatu. I mean, well, I'm trying to think back to Priest. Did they move like that in Priest? Did they move feral like that in Priest?
I think they moved like that in that other movie you just mentioned, the one that you said you wouldn't watch again because you had murdered the dog.
I Am Legend?
Yeah, because that was vampires too. They were very similar, I think.
Yeah, I thought those were supposed to be zombies. Like intelligent zombies.
I thought they were vampires.
I thought they were zombies.
Yeah, they're very...
Well, yeah, they did only really come out at night. They stuck to the shadows. Maybe. I don't know now. I went through that whole movie the one time I watched it thinking that they were just semi-intelligent zombies.
I'm like 90% sure that they were vampires.
Well, they missed that mark on me then. I mean, coming from somebody who...
I'd say Priest. I'd look at some of the Priest vampires. And yeah, I'd say it's like a mix of like Nosferatu and Priest.
See, okay, so coming from somebody who like, hypothetically, if I had the option of becoming a vampire, like if vampires were real and one approached me and was willing to turn me or whatever, normally I would have said yes. I'd be like, yeah, sure, why not? Anything's better than, my miserable life. But like that's also thinking of all of like the Vampire the Masquerade style vampires, like the Buffy, the vampires, Slayer, vampires, things like that. I don't care like about like the visage, like if when I'm vampired out or whatever, if I look different or whatever. I don't like the way they move in this one. I don't. If somebody told me, oh yeah, you could turn into a vampire, but it'd have to be like the vampires from this movie, I'd be like, no, I'll pass. Never mind. There goes my hopes and dreams of ever one day being a vampire.
I mean, it still could.
I wouldn't want to be one from this movie. I don't know. I'd never be able to fly again because my foot would get stuck in the chairs.
How often do you fly, Webby?
I've flown like 6 times. That's a lot for me. I don't like flying. If I could, I'd drive, and I hate driving. So, but anyway, eventually she gets pinned down by the psycho stewardess guy, who ends up taking a vial of her blood using one of her needles and then like locks himself in a car in the cargo hold and injects himself with it. And then she like pokes a hole. She tries to shoot it. It's bulletproof glass. Then she grabs like a metal rod from one of the dog cages and forces it into the windshield. And then he like takes it from her, which he wasn't even vamped out yet. And he overpowered her. Like he just took that metal rod from her. So I don't even know, like, to the extent of what type of strength she gets from being a vampire, if any. But then he injects himself right in front of her, and so she, like, Rob pointed out she was pouring, what was it? It wasn't gasoline. What did she pour into the little hole, Rob, and then light his ass on fire with matches?
It was alcohol.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of alcohol from the carts.
Yeah. And then she lit his ass on fire, and then, like, promptly in the cockpit, they're like, oh, there's a fire in the cargo hold, and then they just extinguish. There's a bunch of the fire extinguishers attached to the ceiling of the cargo hold, which I really don't feel, if those were just extinguishers, that would put out the flame that was in the car already through that tiny little hole. The only way I see that happening is if that was a mechanism that somehow depressurized the cargo hold and sucked all the air out of the cargo hold, because then it would just suffocate the fire. It would starve the fire out. But they definitely look like just fire extinguisher spray things. I don't know. Anyway, so now he's a vampire, and he kills a couple of his friends, and then feeds on them, and then starts turning everybody. This is already the point where Dominic Purcell's character is dead, and like I kind of told Devin, and Devin, well, I think Devin told me, and I just kind of agreed with him. It was after this point when Dominic Purcell's character died off that I just kind of zoned out more. Like I gave less fucks about this movie because he was one of the main reasons I was willing to watch it, because I like him as an actor. Yeah, and then they go through this whole big thing about how they're going to land, what they're going to do, and literally most all of the passengers slowly getting bit and turned into vampires over time. Like some of the passengers try to like take back the cockpit. She's running back and forth on the plane, and her son, they're all taking her son's word and just saying like, "Oh, she's helping. It's him and that whatever the Farid guy that the kid met at the airport." And so like the people with guns didn't shoot her. I don't know. And then they realize they don't have enough fuel to make it to New York, so they have to turn around and go to the nearest place, which I think was in Greenland, or no, it was Scotland.
Scotland, yeah.
And then this is where we see like the opening scene of the movie where they're assisting and giving directions on how to land this plane, and they have, I think his name is Farid. Farid. They have him in like marksman crosshairs in the pilots in the cockpit, and they're just like, okay. The boy escapes the cargo hold, and they get him to safety, and then they're trying to tell, he's trying to tell them, hey, there's no more passengers, they're all dead. I'm not a hijacker. They all think he is the hijacker because the hijackers set them up with him being Muslim and kept saying this, like had him read this thing saying that they hijacked this plane and they were going to crash it into some place in London to cover their own tracks, I guess. And
yeah, I mean, that's one of the things too that I don't understand. Like, they're like, read this or we'll kill you. And then in the thing it said that they were going to detonate the plane. It's like, you're going to kill me anyway. Why would I read this? It's like, if I read it, I'm dead. If I don't read it, I'm dead. Why should I help you? You're going to kill me regardless. I don't know.
Well, if you do read it and they don't shoot you immediately afterwards, at least you have a fighting chance to try to take the plane back, which they successfully did, technically.
They were not. They were all sitting in their seats when the guys were going to jump. The only reason that anyone survived is the vampire lady.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you're not 100% wrong, but at least there's always that chance that you could succeed. A chance is better than none, I feel. I don't think... Did they ever explain why these fucking hijackers wanted to bomb this place in London?
Just what the people were speculating on the plane, like the stock prices or whatever. Like, you don't really find out. But a couple people had theories of the passengers. You're supposed to just be like, oh, hand wave, it's fine. This is the motivation.
Okay. So they land the plane. Elias tries to tell them that Farid's a good guy, and he was helping them. They don't believe him. They sedate him. They take Farid by force off the plane, and then all of the special ops people on the plane start getting attacked, and they're firing. And they throw Farid in the back of a truck, start driving him away. Elias gets out of the ambulance. He fucking just tucks and rolls, fucking dives out of this ambulance, runs towards the plane, and then sees his mother killing somebody and feeding from them. And then the mother sees him, and in a feral-like state, because I'm assuming it's because of when he had to give his mother his blood to like wake her back up. Now she had a taste for it, so she had less of that control over herself.
I think the whole ordeal is what gave her less control. Like, everything that happened just, pushed her into that feral vampire state where she couldn't control it anymore.
Well, either way, she started running after him, and he pulls the button out of his stuffed bear and the remote for the detonator on the fuel tank and blows the plane up along with his mother. And that was pretty much the movie. It was a typical airline hijacking movie, but with a vampire twist. And it didn't even have a happy ending for the kid. It didn't have a happy ending for the mother.
The only other survivor lost a hand.
Yep. Yep. Because he was scratched or bitten, and he was infected. So Nadia wrapped up his wrist with a phone cord and then took an axe to his hand and stopped the infection for him. But yeah.
That's one way to do it.
So, I mean, I'm looking at IMDb. Like, Devin had told me before this happened, before we started recording, that apparently this movie got really good reviews. You know, relatively good reviews. Like, IMDb, it sits at a 6.1. I think you said Rotten Tomatoes has it sitting roughly at like a 6.8, you said.
Hold on, I'll tell you.
It was like an 80-something% or something.
I'll tell you.
I will say an astounding over 10,000 votes on IMDb were voted for 6 or 7, which gave it the 6.1 review number. But I mean,
yeah, that's pretty good. I
don't think it deserves that number, though.
I don't disagree with you. I mean, if you compare pound for pound, if you compare like the opposite end of the spectrum, so like for every, it got 1,000. I got 1,080 10 star ratings, which those people automatically have awful taste in movies if they give this an actual 10.
Yeah, that's assuming those aren't just trolls too.
Yeah, one star, it got 749 1 stars. Again, I don't think it deserved a 10 or a 1. You go to 2s, it got 519 2s to 818 9s. So
now let me ask you both. Well, let me ask you both on this 1 to 10 scale. Like, if you had to go to IMDb and vote for this movie and give it a 1 through 10 rating, what would you guys have put your vote on?
5.
5? Okay, so you would have been in there with the 2,884 people. 13.4% of people said 5. Rob, what would you have given it?
I probably would have given it a 6 or 7, except for the dog murder, which now brings it down to a 4 or a 3. But if you remove the dog murder, around 7. Like a high 6, low 7.
Wow.
We had a 6 on average, right? So
it was a 6 or 7. Both are hovering at 24.9 and 24.8%.
5.
See, I would have given it even probably a little lower. Like, again, I didn't hate the movie. I'm not in a rush to watch it again. I'd give it a 4.
Do? You know what we need to do one day? We need to do like a rate our movie taste comparatively to like the IMDb like list of people. So we need to each come up with like 10 movies that we know the other people have probably seen. You know what I mean? Yeah. And just like round robin, like, all right, Webby, will you give this movie, this movie, this movie, this movie, and go on the list, and then see how we compare to the IMDb ratings.
Yeah, the mass.
How we compare to the masses to see if like we actually know what we're talking about.
Hey, I mean, I don't mind doing that. I mean, I don't know. Like, I would be pressed to give this movie a 4 probably. And that's not even just because of the dog murder. Yeah, I didn't care for the dog murder part either. Yeah, like I'm one of those movies types of people where it's like that would ruin a movie for me. But I was able to see past that. But like, I don't know. Again, it wasn't a terrible movie. If I had to, I would probably sit down and watch it again if somebody wanted to watch it who hadn't seen it already. but I'm not in a rush to put it back on my TV. Like,
yeah. Well, aside from the dog murder, the only thing I really didn't like about it was that all of the vampires on the plane instantly became feral. Where, like, it took her at least a couple days, because she was home with the baby, and then she got that craving for raw meat, but it's like, but everybody on the plane changed instantly and was like, murder, murder, murder.
Yeah.
It's like, why did it take her so long, and then everyone else is like, oh, I'm instantly feral, and I have no mind of my own.
The only thing I could think of would be, and in defense of that, would be like, she got that craving for like raw meat, and she kind of like satiating it with raw meat. But like, if you start eating human flesh, it like expedites that.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. She didn't even get the craving for raw meat until she was home with the baby and everything.
Maybe it was under the circumstances of how, because she only got bit in the hand, and she slowly had that turning process.
Yeah, like that one guy that got bit in the hand. Like the guy that got bit in the hand, he got his hand cut off, so it wasn't like instantaneous.
But like these other guys who did instantly pretty much turn feral, like you had the one guy who just literally injected her blood in his bloodstream. You had some of the other ones who were essentially almost killed and then turned. So maybe, based off of the fact that like their wounds were much more grievous than just a bite on the hand, made the infection that much more like that's the only justification I can possibly think of.
That's fair. That's fair. Like I'm in the same boat. Like I have zero other ideas.
But in any case, that's Blood Red Sky in a nutshell. That was the synopsis of it. It's on Netflix. It was based off of a German movie called Transatlantic for something. I just accidentally closed out of my thing. I didn't even mean to. I will say, let me read you this review. A guy who works for his reviewer's name is Brian Tallarico. He is the editor of RogerEbert.com. He also covers television, film, Blu-rays, video games. He's a writer for Vulture, The Playlist, The New York Times, and the Rolling Stones. And he is the president of the Chicago Film Critics Association. So now, with that being said, I have stated several times talking about movies on this podcast that I do not usually agree with critic reviews. I feel like critics are very snooty and one-sided when they watch a movie. Like they're looking for very, very, very specific criteria, and it's not what the general populace would be looking for in a movie, I guess. Which is why a lot of the times I'll look for just, viewer reviews, like the general populace reviews. I find those a little bit more noteworthy, I guess. But this person gave it a 1.5 stars, and this is what he had to say. He says, "I'm usually interested in U.S. remakes of foreign horror films because the original is uninterested in U.S. remakes of foreign horror films because the original is almost always better. In the case of Peter Thorwarth's A Blood Red Sky, dropping on Netflix today, I truly hope that some studio picks up the rights and redoes it just so they can get it right. From the how do you mess that up school of filmmaking, Blood Red Sky takes a phenomenal concept that mixes genre hits like From Dusk Till Dawn, Snakes on a Plane, and Train to Busan, and just blows it on poorly choreographed action, momentum-draining flashbacks, and interminable runtime."
I do love all three of those movies.
I was so excited to take this journey, but quickly just wanted the plane to land so I could get off. Let me see. It says Nadia, portrayed by Perry Baumeister, is traveling across Atlantic with her son Elias, Carl Anton Koch. when it's hijacked by a group of terrorists intent on taking it down. She clearly hides a secret, but Thorworth is depressingly uninterested in holding it in for long. Blood Red Sky should be a film that takes a sharp turn at maybe the halfway mark or even possibly even later when the quote-unquote bad guys realize there's something they didn't plan for on the plane. Imagine this story told from the point of view of the loosely defined terrorists that then shifts to Nadia when the Chaos agents realize that one of the passengers is actually a vampire. You read that right. Blood Red Sky is the story of a single mother who happens to have been bit by a creature of the night years earlier. She takes a drug to manage her quote-unquote condition, but the violence aboard the plane springs her to life, and it's not long before she's sucking the plasma of the men intent on murdering a plane full of passengers. Sounds fun, right? It's not. This great idea is handled in stunningly routine fashion in Blood Red Sky. The sense of surprise or playfulness that you would think is inherent in a bats on a plane concept just isn't here, as Blood Red Sky only comes to life in bloody spurts after Nadia allows herself to go full vamp. And yet, even then, it feels like its teeth aren't sharp enough. Even as it becomes less and less logically sound, it never finds a spark or sense of tension. It's impossible to get invested in any of it, in part because of the point of view is mostly that of Elias, stunned at the insanity happening around him as he worries most of all about the fate of his mom. The Elias-Nadia connection is designed to add heart, and it does that at times. Baumeister and Koch have a believable connection, but it feels like it's at the expense of what the movie needed to be more than anything. Dumb fun. We're here for vampire versus terrorist. The mother-son thing can be used to elevate that, but it shouldn't be the main focus of the film. One of the biggest problems is the underlit direction throws a dim-weighted blanket over the thrills. The fight sequence on the plane all blur together both in style and substance, so it becomes increasingly impossible to care just as the tension should be taking off. And there's absolutely no reason that a movie with this plot should be over 2 hours long. Throw in some clumsy attempts to integrate anti-Islamic sentiment into the narrative alongside a failure to really use the fact that the sun might come up on the transatlantic flight if they're forced to reroute is a true ticking clock. And Blood Red Sky misses its potential in some way in almost every scene. If there's anything that works, it's how Horvath frames the relationship between Nadia and Elias, even if it gets too much attention. This is really a story of a mother trying to protect her son and the lengths that the parents will go to not only keep their kids safe, but to hide their monstrous side from their progeny. It's a shame to see such a theme wasted on a cinematic flight not worth taking. So that was this guy's review, which I agreed with a lot of it, which kind of makes me sick. Because I don't know. I've read some of his other reviews on other movies and wholeheartedly disagreed. But I mean, it felt like he actually got the pacing right on his review on this movie. I mean, I don't agree with the 1.5 stars, I guess. Again, I'd give it like a 4. Maybe a 3.9. But I don't know. To me, it's one of the, if you put it on the background, far in the background, on the other side of the house background. I mean, I wouldn't mind, I guess.
Hear or see it.
Yeah. Then I could just be
Rob,
doing
you
my
can
own
watch
thing.
this alone in your room while I put my headphones on.
Yeah.
I hope we agree with it.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know. But yeah, that's my thing with this movie. Yeah. All right, any last words about this movie?
Any last words? That's a bit ominous.
Yeah. Well, we're burying this movie in the SU vault. It's going to be laid to rest like most vampires should be.
all the things. I will say that maybe it's because I like horror, although this is definitely not a horror movie. It's more of an action movie with vampires. But I did like it more than either of you, apparently. But except for the dog murder. So I don't know. I mean, it was okay. Like I said, I would watch it again, not like right away, but like if a couple years went by and someone was watching it, I'd be like, oh yeah, I'll sit down and watch that with you.
Well, you know, you now have to watch Life After Beth with me, right?
Does it have dog murder?
Nope.
Then it's a step up over a lot of other things.
It doesn't have dog murder, but you will actively lose brain cells watching it.
Well, I mean, maybe.
I know you will. You will.
All right.
Well, have you ever seen the Life After Beth trailer?
No, well, we'll get into that after the episode. Let's wrap up the episode. We're running just over an hour long. I'm surprised, but that's also because we took a detour talking about other movies.
Which is fine.
Yep. We always take detours on FCU. It's fine.
Yeah.
So, Devin, do you have any last closing comments about this movie? Is that a better way to put that, Rob? Instead of last words?
Yeah, yes.
I do not have a eulogy for this film. No.
Okay. God damn it, choking. All right, well, with that being said, we need a science corner with Rob, or getting real with Rob, and then we need a life advice with Devin.
So the International Space Station went careening off its orbit for a while the other day. So one of the new Russian things they put on it, the propulsion systems, went off unexpectedly and threw the space station out of orbit, and it was for a few hours it was like drifting haphazardly in space. They managed to get everything back together, and it's okay now.
Jesus.
Yeah.
That could have been really bad, though, right?
It could have been, yeah. But everybody's fine, and it's back to normal. Like, if it had careened them directly into the fucking atmosphere, that would have been very bad, but...
Yeah, because then they would have come crashing down, right?
It all would have burned up, yeah.
Jesus. All right. Devin, do you have a life advice with Devin?
I do. I have a themed life advice for Devin this week. And,
Themed? All right.
I encourage you all to look inside. So vampires, they drink blood for vitamin D. Do you ever think of that? Because the sun will kill them, they can't get their vitamin D. But no, you only think about yourself. So come on.
They have vitamin D supplements. Vampires could just take those.
Yeah, I take a vitamin D pill every day.
So do I. But
because I don't go out in the sun. I hate the sunlight.
I do too.
He currently is a vampire.
Yes.
No, I do too. I have a vitamin D deficiency.
Me too. And it's because I don't go out during the day.
But yeah, maybe vampires don't have health insurance and they can't afford it. Maybe the vampires in question don't have health insurance. They're like 5,000 years old. It's hard to have a Social Security card and be like, hey, look, man. You know? So, point being is...
It's hard to live on these streets when you're undead.
Van Helsing was the true villain here, okay? That's all I'm saying. Dracula's one to be left... Like, even in Castlevania, Dracula wanted to be left the fuck alone with his wife. What happened?
Exactly.
Humanity fucking ruined everything.
See, everybody's perspectives on these things are backwards. Van Helsing was really the bad guy. The Jedi are really the bad guys. Okay? I've been saying it for years. The Sith are the good guys. They're just misunderstood. No,
Yeah.
That fell on deaf ears, I think.
No, you're good. I got you. I feel you, buddy.
Anyway, so with that being said, let's say, Rob, where can people find you on the internet?
You can find me on Twitter at Confessor_X and on Twitch at twitch.tv/ConfessorX. And also, if anybody's the good guys, I would say it's the Grey Jedi.
No.
Not the regular Jedi and not the Sith. None of those are heroes.
Sith are the good guys. Devin, where can people find you on the internet?
You guys can find me on Twitter at DMP_Pookie and on Twitch at Mr. D3. Yeah, and as always, you can find me on eBay. Peddling vitamin D supplements for vampires.
Yes.
True Blood. That's how we got True Blood. You saw how that turned out.
Yep, it's so much vitamin D. And as always, everybody, you guys can follow me on Twitter at Jax Forest Walker, all one word, on Twitch at DM Webby. and on eBay at buying vitamin D supplements from Devin. Yeah. So thank you all for listening. We love you. Fuck Booster Gold.
Fuck Booster Gold.
Booster Gold. FBG. FBG. FBG.
I don't know if you, we mentioned the last episode that you weren't part of, Devin. We've done a Booster Gold episode because I had to. I don't think we've done one, but we should do an Aquaman one because I know you like Aquaman and he doesn't get a lot of love from people.
I mean, that's fine. You can do an Aquaman episode.
Talks to fish.
I mean, that's fine.